Well, hello everyone. My name is Rebekah. As Katya mentioned, I'm the project manager for a Japanese furniture brand called Ishinomaki Laboratory. So you may be wondering, why is a furniture brand here? We've kind of, through this past weekend, seemed to have demonized the business side of things a bit. But I'm hoping to convince you guys that it's fine to talk about business and craft in that intersection, and that they can empower one another, and that there are so many lessons to be learned. So I love how Butch was talking about things on a macro scale in terms of partnerships and networks. I'm going to take it down a little bit to the micro scale to use our company as a case study on what it might mean to have craft, empowerment, and business all in the same place. So I really want to thank the British Council for this opportunity to be here. Until I sat on the plane at Tokyo and Narita Airport, I didn't think I was actually going to be able to come because coronavirus. Don't worry, I'm not sick, I'm okay. It's actually my hometown of Seattle, so I'm a Taiwanese American. My hometown of Seattle is now the one that's more impacted by coronavirus, so a lot of thoughts and prayers there. So let's get started. First off, has anyone here heard of Ishinomaki Laboratory? If so, can you raise your hand? Before this conference? Okay, good to know. So the front half of this presentation is a bit introduction heavy. I want to make sure everyone knows the context of why we are how we are. So Ishinomaki Laboratory began in 2011 as a simple workshop for the local community. Today we're pushing the horizons of DIY through the power of design, energizing people in the community as a locally run independent company, and what we like to say is the world's first DIY label. I'll explain what that means later on. So what's really important to clarify from the start of this is that we are a publicly incorporated furniture company. We're not a nonprofit organization. We don't try to portray ourselves as such. And I think this distinction is really important because it means that from a business sense, our first priority is to make a profit and sustain operations. I think it's really important to be honest about that, but also not negate the fact that we can still have a social impact and can still be advancing craft. So those are some examples of our furniture, very simple, minimalist, functional pieces. So we are a small team of about 5 full-time workers, 2 part-time staff, based in Ishinomaki, which is a small seaside town on the coast of Miyagi Prefecture, Japan. Our wood workshop is fairly basic, so it's not like the Fab Lab that Tomas presented about a few days ago with CNC laser cutters, 3D printers, and whatnot. We have what kind of machinery and tools you might find in like a carpenter hobbyist garage. So the circular saw, a drill press, a belt sander, random sheets of sandpaper just lying everywhere, etc. All of our furniture is handmade to order in this space, with a few parts occasionally outsourced if we don't have the capacity to handle the order. So people are often quite surprised at the footprint and influence of our brand, as we are just a small team in a small town. Yet we're able to produce high quality, simple, functional pieces of furniture that are stylish and suitable for high-end spaces. Today I'm here to share about how our business model, specifically the partnerships and the network that we've cultivated in the last 9 years, enable us to continue to innovate and excel in this competitive market. So in spreading the impact of DIY and design, we kind of come back to these 4 things, and I'll elaborate on them more later: inspiration, innovation, connection, and collaboration. But first, before I get into this, I want to talk to you guys about why we are the way we are. I'll use it by using our logo. So our logo is split into 3 parts. This part is Ishinomaki, the Japanese characters for Ishinomaki. So Ishinomaki is a seaside town, like I mentioned. It doesn't seem very large, but officially our population is somewhere around 140,000, but it's spread across a wide geographic area. So the part of Ishinomaki that I personally live in, I live behind an elementary school in a small apartment next to the rice fields. Yet somehow our population is 140,000. So this photo was taken late last year, shows a vast amount of construction and other infrastructural improvements happening right along the coast. This photo shows the exact same spot, but in March 2011, almost 9 years to this day. So this coming Wednesday, actually, March 11th, will mark the 9-year anniversary of the Great East Japan earthquake in tsunami. So that was a 9.0 earthquake, and I'm sure everyone here probably remembers when it happened, as it was in the news. And here in the Philippines, we experienced so many disasters as well, so I think it was very impactful. It was that once in a 1,000 years quake that really just rocked the lives of not just Northeast Japan and these coastal communities, but all of Japan, and it affected the world because people saw the devastating impact and power of nature. So nationwide, there were about 16,000 casualties, still 2,500 missing to this day. In Ishinomaki, we made up 3,500 of that 16,000, just our town alone, with 420 still missing. After the disaster, this is the center of town. At the very back is the train station. It flooded, there were hundreds of aftershocks, fires, devastation throughout the center of town. So this is where we are from. Second part of our logo, it says Kobo in Japanese. So our company name in Japanese is Ishinomaki Kobo. The founders, they actually thought of the name of Ishinomaki Laboratory before they thought of the Japanese name, because they wanted the laboratory, this company, to be a space of creative ideas, new innovations. And so for Japanese, they selected Kobo, which means workshop. So the way the company started, to kind of quickly summarize, is that our founder, Keiji Ashizawa, he is a Tokyo-based architect and product designer. He had helped to design a restaurant, the interiors of a restaurant, back in October 2010. However, this is in Ishinomaki, and however, the disaster hit just about 6 months later, March 2011. So Keiji, he called his friend, that restaurant owner, and asked, like, are you okay? Is your family okay? Can I do anything to help? Is the restaurant okay? Of course, as the architect, he was concerned. His friend said, so actually that building right there, is there a pointer on this? Yes. Center button. This building is that restaurant. A boat went right through the front and broke the structures in front of it. Flooding went all the way up to about here, so about 3 to 4 meters. So the restaurant was no longer usable, and the friend honestly told him that. And then Keiji asked, what can I do to help? I think a lot of people in Japan felt that way, especially the Tokyo area. They were a little bit removed, but they still wanted to do something. And the design community really wanted to do something. So the friend told Keiji, just come and help us clean up. As you can see, there was so much debris. This is actually where, a little bit after the cleanup, because they cleared that part to get in trucks to clear out the mud and the other wreckage. So Keiji went, and as he was helping to clean up, he saw that that government was so overwhelmed, that the locals were so overwhelmed, that people were not able to get on moving with their lives because there was so much debris. They could not repair their own homes. They could not make any furniture that they might need in their new temporary living facilities. And so Keiji decided that he wanted to do something about this. So he activated his network of other designers, and he was able to source donations of tools, of lumber, and thus began the first iteration of Ishinomaki Laboratory. So it started off just in like a vacant shop front that had been damaged by flooding. Keiji put up a logo, put the donations of lumber and tools inside, and made it open for public use. Some of the first projects were to renovate, so this is the inside. Some of the first projects were to renovate a old bar, the French Quarter Grill and Bar. In Japan, you find that there are many weird names for establishments. I think that's a universal thing here in East Asia, East and Southeast Asia. But they changed that erect bar to become Fukko Bar, which means revitalization bar, a place where locals and volunteers could gather, hang out, and share ideas. Another initial project was the first editions of the Ishinomaki bench, which became our first product. Working together, they wanted to create a bench that was sturdy using dimensional lumber, which we use to this day. Things like 2x2s, 2x4s, 2x6s, etc. And Keiji enlisted the help of high school students from Ishinomaki Technical High School, and they designed 50 units of the bench, crafted 50 units of the bench to be used for a local outdoor movie theater. What they found in post-disaster context is that people just needed to use their hands. People needed to find a sense of fulfillment again. Otherwise, they were going to start to lose hope and lose purpose. And I think a lot of people in post-disaster or other adverse contexts can resonate with that. There was also workshops with residents in temporary housing, helping to build what's called an endai bench. Even in traditional Japanese homes, and even in the Japanese temporary housing post-disaster, they need these benches in order to access the laundry hanging racks on the top. So very practical uses, very sturdy, but still with a design aesthetic. And through pure happenstance, has anyone here heard of Herman Miller? You guys heard of Herman Miller? So Herman Miller is a pretty well-established American furniture company. They sent a group of volunteers in fall 2011, and they wanted to figure out how could they help the local community. And so they saw that there's already this existing initiative called Ishinomaki Laboratory. So they connected with KG, and they started to do more DIY projects, more workshops with the locals. And then there were also just DIY workshops for fun. Like I mentioned earlier, it was so important for people just to be able to gain that sense of skill, to feel like they had a purpose, to have a creative outlet. So the last part of our logo is this kind of open box. And the reason why it's open is because Ishinomaki Laboratory wanted Ishinomaki to not be so closed off. What was brought up earlier in one of the keynotes is that we have this issue worldwide now of aging populations, of rural depopulation, and that was something that was already impacting Ishinomaki before the disaster, but was made even worse because of the disaster. So the open box is representing an opening of Ishinomaki to new ideas, to new people, and to have a good flow of information. So as we began to grow more established, and through the media exposure that came with that Herman Miller collaboration, the inquiries began flooding in from Japan and even outside of Japan, internationally, asking if those products that were initially just made for workshops could also be bought. And that's how Ishinomaki Lab began transitioning to become a full-fledged furniture company. So we were incorporated as a company in 2014. So we started to exhibit our work throughout Japan. This is at the International Furniture Fair Tokyo, IFFT. This was from IFFT last year. And then we also did international exhibitions as well, such as this one in Singapore with our local partner there at the time, a brand called Supermama. So we also work with designers beyond KG's initial network of friends. So word of mouth spread about Ishinomaki Laboratory, and what I'll touch on later a bit more. But people, they heard our story, they saw our products, and they wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to help reactivate the community. They wanted to contribute designs that honored that initial design aesthetic. And so we've been able to create very simple, minimalist, functional products that majority of them still use the dimensional lumber, standard lumber that I mentioned earlier. We've expanded to use things like simple L-angle steel bars or plywood backed with furniture linoleum. And then with those designers, we've done a little more kind of fancy exhibitions. So Michael Marriott is a UK-based designer. We helped with his exhibition in Tokyo. And then Torafu Architects, the ones who designed that A-frame stool that has now become quite iconic in different places. We helped them with different installations throughout Japan. And so in the spirit of our origins, we continue to host workshops this day. This is at Yokohama Disaster Risk Reduction Learning Center, a very long name. And helping people to enjoy DIY, enjoy design, to get creative, to work with their hands. With open furniture at a community organization called Shibaura House. They wanted to use furniture as a way to activate public spaces. They wanted people to be able to see good craft, good craftsmanship outside, and to touch and feel and engage with the material. So we've done that with them for the past 2 summers. And then we sell our furniture not just to regular private people like you and I, but also in the contract furniture market, to offices, to cafe spaces, helping people to see our furniture. And as you can see, all of our furniture has our logo stamped on it. And then when people see that, especially when they can read it in Japanese or in Chinese and whatnot, they're able to Google it and they're able to find the story of Ishinomaki. We often get tagged on Instagram saying like, oh, what is this? Like, it's Ishinomaki. I didn't think I would see a small rural town furniture products in such a fancy location. And then this is what I really want to focus on, which is our initiative called Made in Local. So As I mentioned at the beginning, we're just a team of 5 to 7 staff. So handling all of these projects and continuing to grow is only possible because of the network that we've cultivated and these innovative partnerships that we've built over time. One of these is the Made in Local initiative. So I manage this one. It gives me both a lot of great joy and happiness as well as stress, but that's just the life of, I think, working in this crafts industry. So we share our product designs, kind of license them out, and we share our know-how with international makers for them to make our products using the skills of local craftsmen using locally available timber. Doesn't mean it has to be timber from like the domestically Filipino timber, because there are many restrictions here in the Philippines. So for example, with our partner in Manila, they sourced Southeast Asian teak from other countries ethically, as well as European larch, whatever they're able to source in a sustainable manner. And now we have partners located in London, Manila, Berlin. Later this month, we're launching a new partnership in Detroit, and we also even have a domestic one in Japan that kind of makes our furniture a little fancier. If you're interested in that, I can share about it more later. This idea of made in local is really similar to what Cameron mentioned in his keynote yesterday about cosmo-localism, so designing global, manufacturing locally. But at the same time, it's also a bit kind of what he was saying, pluriversal, so about coexisting locals. So we don't want any of them to kind of come into competition with one another to clash, but we're all building up on what unique things our communities have to offer. So on the very right is photos of our products made in the UK, sold in a shop in London by our partner SCP, a furniture retailer there. The second one is Manila, the third of Berlin, and the fourth of that kind of special one in Japan that I mentioned earlier with a larger Japanese furniture company. So, like I mentioned, this Ishinomaki laboratory is built up of that connection to Ishinomaki, how it transitioned from just a simple public workshop into a furniture brand, and how we want to take it beyond Ishinomaki. We want to share our story, we want people to learn from it, and we want to learn from others. So back to this initial thing. I apologize if the text is a bit small. I thought the screen would be larger because originally we were in the other room. But inspiration. So from the very beginning, we were inspired by the immediate reality and the needs of the post-disaster context. As is sometimes said, risk is opportunity, or as an urban planning professor of mine used to say, disaster is opportunity. That's not something you ever want to hear in the immediate aftermath of disaster. It can be very insensitive. But in hindsight, when you look back, especially in the case of Northeast Japan, like I mentioned earlier, there were already issues of depopulation, of rural flight, of youth feeling hopeless that they can't do anything in their rural hometowns, they must go to Tokyo. Ishinomaki Laboratory wanted to be a sort of catalyst for change in that region, to show people that your hometowns can be creative, you can have good products come out, and you can be a part of that. The second aspect is innovation. So available materials, tools, and skill sets, they were kind of constraints on Ishinomaki Laboratory in the beginning, but they led to the innovative designs that make us who we are today. So we work with softwoods, particularly Western red cedar from Canada, and that's because it was what was donated in the beginning. It's something that's lightweight but durable but rot resistant. And for our furniture, like in the images I showed earlier, we keep the screws exposed. We're not using 1,000-year-old fancy Japanese joinery. We really respect that. We love it. It's beautiful. But that's not very replicable. And it's a hard thing to teach and a hard thing for people to appreciate and become intimate with at times. So any designer that we have worked with has had to kind of operate within these design constraints, and we think that that creates a lot of innovation for them. So connection. Activating existing networks and communities of practice, finding like-minded creatives. I think this is very important and applicable for anyone here in this room, because we came into being and we've been able to stay alive and stay operating because of that initial activation of existing networks and communities of practice from our founder, from KG's other designer friends and their friends. And in the beginning, we had to be proactive about searching out designers, but now, because we've slowly been establishing ourselves and making our story known, making our products known, they come to find us. So what's really important is that no company, organization, craftsman, artisan can stand alone and expect to succeed. It takes connections, it takes exposure, it takes people giving you that chance in order to bring even those best ideas and crafts to the global stage. Last one, collaboration. So this is fostering mutual growth through complementary strengths. So with our partners, whether they are the designers, the retailers, the media, the photographers, etc., the collaboration is really rooted in that complementary strengths. We all have something that we can contribute. For me, as the project manager, I'm handling the business, the collaboration, the marketing. Doesn't make me any less, but it makes everyone a vital piece of the puzzle. So, taking these 4 values into account, I really want to focus on Ishinomaki Lab in the Philippines. So, we've been active in this country since 2016. We were invited by Japan Foundation Manila to participate in workshops in Bohol. So Bohol in 2013, I believe, had the big earthquake. And so Japan Foundation Manila invited Ishinomaki Laboratory co-founders to come to network and to teach and to learn from the people who experienced that earthquake. And then following that, they invited Ishinomaki Lab again, 2017, 2018, to assist with workshops in the creative communities, creative urban communities of Metro Manila. And then in 2019, we established a made in local partnership, which I'll touch on. So this is the flyer for that initial 2016 workshop in Bohol. As I mentioned, we were working with those initial local communities. Here is one of our co-founders, Takahiro Chiba. He was the one who runs our workshops, a very jovial kind of guy. Reminds me of Santa Claus, very cheery, like a young Asian Santa Claus. So working with the carpenters, they were able to learn a lot from each other. It wasn't what we really value about any of our participation in social events and networking and whatnot is that it's mutual discourse. It's not a one-way thing. So we never come into it with the perspective that we are going to impart all this knowledge on you. We also want to learn from you. We want to learn from your experiences. It'll build us all up together. This is the 2017 workshop in Manila, working with the creative communities of Escolta and Capitolio. I'm not saying anything right, but forgive me. So what they did was they were making furniture, and then they installed some in the public space. They had done site visits, seen what was lacking, and then went in and put it in. And then in 2018, they also did furniture workshops and exhibitions at A11, a really interesting collaborative space in Manila, creating very interesting pieces that kind of incorporated both kind of public use, but as well as play, a sort of playfulness to the furniture. So from those workshops, from the 2017 workshop, we became connected. Ooh, okay, 5 minutes. From the 2017 workshop, we were connected with what became our local partner here in the Philippines, La Mana. So La Mana consists of a couple based in Manila, Jar and Kay Conseco. Jar is here with me today as moral support. Yay, Jar. Jar participated in the 2017 workshop, and he was really impacted by the story, by the designs of the product. He went home, told his wife Kay about it, and they decided they wanted to be our distributor here in the Philippines. So it's another example of people hearing the story, seeing the product, wanting to partner with you. After they heard of our Made in Local initiative, they decided that they could do it. But they didn't have any experience with furniture making. Despite that, they sought out other people to learn from them, established their own furniture workshop in Antipolo, and launched La Mana in order to make our products here in the Philippines. So they do the same thing, using the branding iron to putting down our logo. We launched a collaboration with them at a shop called Exception in Makati, Manila last April. And it was a grand success. And it was amazing and inspiring to see the creatives of Manila all gathered there supporting us at the launch. So there's Chiba-san, the co-founder, Keiji, Kay, and Jar. And so I think Ishinomaki Laboratory is very appreciative to them because they use their skills and their networks in order to help bring us to life here in the Philippines. Jar is a professional photographer, so he often uses our products in styling, such as with this photo. And he shoots photos and assists with interviews for local famous people, I suppose. So this is the wife of the Japanese ambassador to the Philippines, and that's our bench. So Jar kind of just brought it to the photo shoot, asked if she would incorporate it in the shoot, and she agreed, and then she also heard our story and loved it and wanted to support it. So that's Cebu Pacific's In-Flight magazine. Kay, on the other hand, she loves our workshops and loves the idea of empowering people with that DIY skill. So she assists with the workshops, such as with our DIY bird kit. And then this is from last month. They were making the Ishinomaki stool at their workshop in Antipolo. So kind of back to close a bit to this. Now, Lamana is the one who is going through this cycle. They were inspired by us, they're innovating now, they're making the connections, they're collaborating. We want this to kind of ripple out with our made in local partners and beyond. So last thoughts, the democratization and hybridization of craft. What do I even mean by this? So for a furniture brand like us, partnerships and collaborations lead to these inevitably. So democratization is more about public ownership. So through the workshops, through those made in local partnerships, we want to make sure that craft is not something that's viewed as really elitist and that nobody can touch except those who have had thousands of hours of training. There is that aspect of craft, for sure, and I'm sure we could get into a heated debate. But there is also the aspect of craft as something that can be more intimate, that you yourself could pursue in your daily life, and we want people to understand that. Hybridization, this is something that some other speakers have kind of indirectly touched on, about how craft by itself may not be able to survive, but craft plus something else, craft plus architecture, craft plus tourism, craft plus business can help it to excel. So we do workshops, we do talks, we do exhibitions, we make ourselves accessible to the public. And this next slide, please don't take a picture, if it's in video, that's fine. But these are the tentative renderings for a guest house and showroom that we are opening in Ishinomaki this summer. We are going to use it as a space to showcase the products, to be a community space, a cafe, have a small wood workshop, small metal workshop, and on the top floor, people can stay the night, kind of Airbnb style. So this is another way for people to become intimate with our craft from another angle. And the last thing is the value of a good story. So there is no point in me being here if we were just an ordinary furniture brand with pretty pictures and a cool, relevant, minimalist aesthetic. There are plenty of furniture companies with that and product designers that kind of adhere to that sort of aesthetic. But what differentiates us is our story and how it draws the audience in and invites them to join in what is now a movement rather than a furniture company. So my friend, he is currently on this pilgrimage in Shikoku, which is a southern island of Japan, wandering around 88 different temples, and he's been posting on Instagram very existential questions, such as, is there meaning in life, in experiences that are not shared with others? I'm like, are you okay? But I think you can't defend each answer. There is a meaning in life in solitude, like monks or nuns, but there's also meaning in sharing life with others. Likewise, in craft, there's a meaning in the kind of craft that is built up over heritage, over time, that perhaps is kept to oneself, but there is also meaning in sharing it with others and making it available and in networking and broadening that network. So I want to leave you guys with that and just thank you for this opportunity.